Okay, so I'm here with Andrew Galfi. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. He's one of the main cast from a short film called Take My Hand Again, which is in competition at a festival in Berlin in 2017. Welcome. Andrew, if you look at me, please, if that's okay. Sure,
yes.
Explain that.
Yes, of course.
If you could just give us a synopsis of what this film is about and tell us what your involvement actually is in this picture, that'd be
right. The film is about a man who lost his wife in an accident. The wife died in cause of this accident, but another man could be saved because of the blood group of the man's wife is matching.
Yeah. And
together with the blood, the personality of Hans Braun, so was called the main character, has been transferred to the other injured man. You have to know that this other man has caused the accident in which Hans Braun lost his wife.
Yes. And
finally, we see how the other man called John Smith is waking up with the personality of Jasmine Brown, the wife of...
That was killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should point out, I have seen the film. It's really, it's a great story actually, because obviously it throws up all kinds of moral questions.
It is indeed.
Particularly because it's not so much about reincarnation, is it? I guess it's more to do with the fact that, or maybe it is. I suppose it is to do with reincarnation, but it's the way that the subject's approached in terms of what he perceives or what we think is his wife being transferred into another person's body. But like you say, and the twist on that, of course, is the person that killed his wife is the person that gets, as it were, her soul, her personality, and everything that goes with it. And as I say, it's a great story and kind of surprising. I haven't seen anything quite like this before. But yeah, can you tell me how did you become involved in this project? And when you first saw the script, did you think, wow, this is great? How did that work?
This is a very interesting story, and I have to get a bit longer because I'm in personal contact with Lon Yan for over a year now, nearly 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we've been in constant exchange of scripts.
Yeah.
And the idea how Lon Yan came to this is based upon one of my scripts, in which I described myself, how my life would be as a woman, as a girl. And he got the idea to write a script about how in fact it would be if the beloved changed the sexuality, changed the gender.
So in fact the script is based on a script or a story by you?
Yes.
Wow.
He took the idea from me, but nonetheless it's his work he did of it. My script is dealing about a completely other subject.
But even so, that's an interesting twist on how this all came about. Anyway, sorry, do carry on.
No problem. And how I came to join him as an actor, well, he read several of my scripts before, and he asked me more or less spontaneously in summer 2016 if I wanted to join him to play this character, because he said that if someone has the sense of making films and has the sense of writing scripts and producing, this person has actually the sense to act, to play a role. And I said, I feel really honored that you invite me, and I shall accept your invitation.
Well, excellent. So is this the first time you've acted? Was this, or I know you've been, for the benefit of the people that don't know, we talked a little bit earlier in the week, didn't we? But is this your first proper acting role, or had you performed before?
In fact, it is. In this extent, is my first role I acted in. It wasn't the first time I was on scene, but I never thought about doing it professionally. I do it more or less by passion, because I like it, and if someone invites me, I shall accept his invitation. And Take My Hand Again was my first role.
And can you explain what you thought the job would be like, the role would be like, and the actuality of actually making it? How different were your initial thoughts about the role would be, and actually performing? How diametrically opposed were they?
there were no oppositions because I didn't went with an actual imagination inside it. I just thought, well, acting is like I get asked a question, the life asks me a question. I cite here William Shakespeare in his work, The Merchant of Venice, when Greciano says, the world is but is the world a stage, and every man must play a part.
Yeah, all the words say, yeah.
And I did it more or less with this thought that acting, in fact, if I'm speaking to you, if I'm behaving in my life, the life someone above is giving me input, and I need to react in some way. In the film, and Take Mine Again is a very good example for this. This is the script, having done so. So I have my script, and I just decided how I would act in the situation the script describes me.
And of course, when you are acting, it doesn't matter how close to your actual personality that the role you're going to assume will be. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you are really playing someone else, aren't you? And I suppose the question I'm trying to get to is, how fulfilling is that to do that, to actually step into someone else's shoes and be someone that you're not necessarily ever going to be in your life?
I should compare it with choir singing. When I'm singing choir, I'm the choir leader, the choir director gives us always indications of how we should pronounce, how we should sing this and that passage, and I do this more or less in the when I'm acting too. In certain passages in the script, I make annotations that I should have this and that allusion. I translate more or less. I'm acting as an interpreter at this point. That means I translate the personality described by the script to my own personality, how I would be in his place.
Yes.
So that's how I bring myself close to the person described. And it fulfills me quite much because it makes me very interesting thinking about other persons. In my life, I was always been someone stranger, regarded as someone not being, as someone being extraordinary. And this brought me very often to the question about how others are thinking about me.
Right.
So it isn't stranger for me at all to think into other persons.
And yet,
roles.
although you had quite an open mind and you didn't really think about the role before you took it on, so there was.
No.
But I'd like to know how you felt when you saw the first. We're not talking about a rough cut here. How you actually felt when you saw the finished film for the first time. What is it possible to explain your feelings?
I tried to. I am.
Or should I? It might be
I
easy
felt
to.
quite normally. I don't have any particular impressions like that. I just was impressed how the editing was done. What marvelous work Lun first did, because he has a very extraordinary, tremendously astonishing sense of script writing. If he sees our interview, I shall repeat it for him overtly. He has an immensely good sense of writing scripts, and I can't keep repeating this over and over. And that's what I saw in Take My Hand Again. Not more or less about myself, but about the work Melvin Yeppel, the editor, did, and finally Lunyan, the master, the director himself.
I mean, I admire anyone that's involved with it. This is my personal opinion. I admire absolutely everyone that's involved with the film, whether it's the director, the producer, the editor, the DOP, the actors and actresses. But actually, the thing that piques me the most is the editing, because I always think the editor ultimately can take a project, assemble it in such a way that people might not have imagined, even the filmmakers themselves. So often they have a heck of a lot of power, although it's the producers and directors obviously that are making the film. But it's interesting because I think there's, and I know this happens because I've spoken to lots of editors, they might be sitting at home in a dark room by themselves putting a project together. Not necessarily, they might have the director with them, but often they are on their own, and it's an incredible thing to be able to do. And that's why I find the editing job the most interesting.
It is.
If I'm brutally honest.
Well, I believe you actually, because in one of my projects, which I produced together with Lunyan, but with inverse roles, Lunyan was my assistant and I was a director. I am right on editing a film right now, and I think how marvelous it is, in fact, to see the difference between the scene we actually shot at the set and finally what came out of it.
Yeah.
And I think those are two different films, I dare to say. Two different, even several different films, because I have the inner image of the script I read, I have the storyboard, and finally what came out at the set, and then the recorded footage when we are editing it, and finally the result. And this is a very admirative thing in filmmaking. I never came to my mind up to the point I myself became an editor.
And you're a software engineer, I believe.
By my profession is software engineering. That's true.
So that's a huge chasm between acting, filmmaking, and software engineering. As being a software engineer, at what point did you? I mean, when you were studying, okay, I'm going to become a software engineer, or whatever you had decided. At that point, had you already started thinking about being involved in filmmaking? Or when did this happen? And if it was at that time, why didn't you choose to become as your first career in filmmaking? I'm guessing you morphed into it, but I don't know.
Yes. This, in fact, as my whole life, is an interesting story, because when I start to answer all of your questions, because all of your questions have an interesting point. To become I never wanted to abandon either of them. I decided to become software engineer because I think that it is an easier way to earn money. I listened often about artists who are fighting hard to get through their life, and I decided that I don't want to submit art in this corsage of being in constant stress of marketing, in the need of running after money, and that I finally don't have time to pursue my own message, my own business. I would like to stay independent. Nonetheless, I want to make both, because my life aim is to do education, to reawake the lust of doing education, of being interested in literature, in sciences, in history, and I would like to aim students and pupils for this by using all ways of culture, and that involves theater, choir, singing, filmmaking, of course, filmmaking,
yes,
bringing together acting and music making and choir making, and the use of computer games, the use of softwares in order to ensure interactivity. And with that, I answered also your question why I decided to get involved in filmmaking. In fact, I wanted to rester fidèle, to remain true to filmmaking, what I did before. As well, I'm making films for 7 years now, but film that is called I make pictures. I draw pictures, draw a story about it. That means I read texts and I put together.
And do you have an idea of where you'd like to be in 5 years' time?
I would like to, in fact, be a digital humanist. A digital humanist in the way that I am developing software solutions for archives, museums, and other digitizing projects. We have a huge amount of data that comes up, which needs to be preserved and presented to a larger public, because there are a lot of stories hidden behind it. So software engineer on the one hand, on the other filmmaker for institutes, in the sense that I use the stories that data gives to open this up for a larger public. That, for example, I'm writing currently a master thesis about Friedrich Gentz, politician and literaire in the late 18th, early 19th century. And I could quite imagine that about his letters, about his correspondence, which is a very, very interesting reflection upon the French Revolution and the role of England in the Napoleon era, that I should make a film upon. upon it, based on the material I'm just working on.
Okay, and just finally, this is to do with your career, and nothing to do with filmmaking, but I'd like to know your opinion about this. Do you believe that we are at a point in the next 5 to 10 years where AI could threaten our existence?
IRA?
No, AI.
AI, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Not in the 5-10 years. Not.
Okay, let's try in the next 30 to 40 years.
That's possible if we continue switching out our mentality, our intelligence. I see rather a threat in there. I've talked to you about my ambitions for life, reawaken the interest in education and culture. And there I see a much greater danger that people aren't interested in history, in seeing what...
or I should say, do you believe in singularity? It might be a better way to describe the question I'm asking. A point where the AI has overtaken what we call human intelligence, and has become a threat.
That is quite a difficult question to answer. I
know you wasn't expecting that.
So,
but
I think no. I tried to. I wasn't expecting upon anything. I came as open-minded here as possible, and I decided to say, well, I have ideas upon this. So I don't think we are as much threatened by artificial intelligence, but by the destruction of ourselves.
Oh right, so you're more concerned that we're likely to kill ourselves rather than AI being the ultimate.
Yes.
I think you're probably right.
I think when we find an answer to this, when we find a definite answer to this, it will be too late.
Okay, listen, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you. Your name is John Smith.
I'm her.